Welcome to English Stories Academy.
Chapter 1. The First Step to Confidence. When I started, I was just like you, nervous, unsure, and frustrated. I thought, how will I ever speak fluently? But over time, I realized that the most important thing was to start. It didn't matter if I made mistakes, it only mattered that I tried. I still remember my very first attempt to speak English. I was standing in a small cafe holding a menu. The words seemed blurry because I was so nervous. The person behind the counter asked, "What can I get for you?" I froze for a second, my heart racing. Then I pointed to a coffee and said, "This, please." It was a simple phrase, but to me, it felt like a mountain I had climbed. The cashier smiled and replied, "One coffee, coming up." I felt a small burst of joy. I had spoken English, and it worked. From that day, I learned an important lesson. Starting small is okay. Nobody begins by giving long speeches. Every journey begins with a single step, and speaking a few words is that step. I told myself, "Ariel, you don't have to be perfect. Just start." The first step is not just about saying words. It's about building courage. It's about telling yourself, "I can do this." When you start, it's normal to feel nervous. I used to worry about people laughing at my mistakes. But do you know what I learned? Most people are kind. They see your effort, and they appreciate it. When I made mistakes, people would smile and help me. That made me realize that mistakes are not something to fear. They are part of learning. I also realized that I needed to listen more. Listening helped me understand how words are used and how sentences are built. So, I started watching short videos in English. At first, I didn't understand everything, but I focused on the words I knew. I repeated them out loud, even if I was alone. It felt silly at first, but it worked. Over time, I started to understand more. Another thing that helped me was writing down new words. When I heard a word I didn't know, I wrote it in a small notebook. For example, one day I heard someone say, "delicious." I asked a friend, "What does delicious mean?" They explained, "It means very tasty." I wrote it down and used it the next time I ate something I liked. I said, "This cake is delicious." My friend smiled and said, "Good job." Moments like these kept me motivated. The most important thing is to practice every day. I started talking to myself in English. Yes, it sounds funny, but it helped me a lot. When I was cooking, I would say, "I am cutting vegetables." Now I am boiling water. When I was walking, I would describe what I saw. "There's a red car. The sky is blue." It was like having a conversation with myself, and it made me more comfortable using English. When you begin, remember this. It's not about being perfect. It's about trying. Every time you say a word in English, you are getting closer to your goal. Every mistake you make is a lesson learned. Every small step you take is progress. You don't have to be fluent overnight. It's a journey, and every journey starts with a first step. As I sat in that cafe after ordering my coffee, I realized something. Speaking English wasn't just about learning words. It was about believing in myself. It was about saying, "I can do this." And so can you. The first step is yours to take. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start now and let the journey begin. Chapter 2. Breaking Free from Fear. When I first started speaking English, fear was my biggest challenge. My heart would race, my palms would sweat, and my mind would go blank the moment I tried to speak. It wasn't because I didn't know the words. I knew plenty of them. It was because I was afraid of making mistakes. I thought, what if they laugh at me? What if I say something wrong? These thoughts held me back. But one day, something changed. I was in a market, trying to buy some fruit. The seller spoke only English, and I had no choice but to try. I pointed to the apples and said, "How much for these?" My voice was shaky, but I got the words out. The seller smiled and replied, $3 for a pound. I nodded, gave him the money, and walked away with my apples. It wasn't perfect, but I had done it. I realized that speaking, even with mistakes, was better than staying silent. That moment taught me an important lesson. Mistakes are not the enemy. They are stepping stones. Every mistake you make helps you learn and grow. If you never try, you never improve. So I told myself, it's okay to make mistakes. It's part of the process. The truth is, most people don't care about your mistakes. They care about what you're trying to say. I remember once I said, "I need 2 breads," instead of, "I need 2 loaves of bread." The shopkeeper smiled and said, "2 loaves coming right up." She didn't correct me harshly or laugh at me. Instead, she understood what I meant and helped me. Moments like this showed me that people are more forgiving than we think. I also learned to laugh at myself. One day, I was trying to tell a friend that I wanted to practice speaking, but I accidentally said, "practice cooking." She looked confused and then laughed. When I realized my mistake, I laughed too. It wasn't a big deal. In fact, it became a funny memory. Learning to laugh at my mistakes took away the fear and made learning more enjoyable. Another thing that helped me was focusing on the message, not the grammar. When I started, I wanted every sentence to be perfect. But this made me overthink and freeze up. Then, I changed my approach. Instead of worrying about perfect grammar, I focused on communicating my ideas. If I didn't know a word, I used simple phrases or gestures to explain. For example, if I didn't know the word umbrella, I'd say, "the thing that protects you from rain." People always understood, and I felt more confident. Talking to supportive people also made a big difference. I found friends and teachers who encouraged me. They didn't point out every mistake I made. Instead, they celebrated my efforts and helped me improve. If you can, find people like this. They can make your learning journey so much easier. I also started asking for help when I needed it. If I didn't know how to say something, I'd ask, "How do you say this in English?" People were always willing to teach me. I learned that asking questions is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wanting to learn. Another way I overcame fear was by preparing for common situations. Before going to a restaurant, I'd practice how to order food. Before asking for directions, I'd practice simple phrases like, "Excuse me, where is the bus stop?" Preparation gave me confidence, and made speaking easier. Slowly but surely, my fear started to disappear. The more I practiced, the more I realized that mistakes didn't matter as much as I thought. What mattered was trying, learning, and improving. Every time I spoke, I felt a little braver. So, if you're afraid of speaking, remember this. Fear is normal, but it doesn't have to stop you. Speak, even if it's not perfect. Laugh at your mistakes and learn from them. Find people who encourage you and focus on communicating your ideas. Most importantly, remind yourself that every word you say is a step forward. The next time you feel scared, take a deep breath and try. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake. What matters is that you're trying, and with every try, you're breaking free from fear. Chapter 3. Turning everyday encounters into practice. Learning to speak English doesn't always mean sitting in a classroom or reading a textbook. Some of the best opportunities to learn come from everyday moments, buying groceries, taking a bus, or chatting with a neighbor. These small interactions are like mini lessons in real-life English. Once I realized this, I began to see the world around me as my classroom. I remember one morning when I went to a bakery. I wanted to buy a loaf of bread and some cookies. At first, I thought about pointing to the items, but then I decided to speak instead. "I would like 1 loaf of bread and 6 cookies, please," I said, a bit nervously. The cashier smiled and said, "Sure, anything else?" I shook my head and said, "No, thank you." It was a simple exchange, but it made me feel proud. I had used English in a real situation. That day, I realized something important. Every conversation is a chance to practice. Whether it's asking for the price of apples at the market or ordering coffee at a cafe, these moments help you improve. They teach you new words, show you how people naturally speak, and build your confidence. One of the best ways I practiced was by asking questions. Whenever I didn't understand something, I asked, "What does this mean?" Or, "Can you explain this?" People were always kind and willing to help. For example, at a store, I saw a sign that said, "Buy one, get one free." I asked the cashier, "What does this mean?" She explained, "If you buy one item, you get another one for free." That simple question taught me a new phrase and made me more comfortable asking for help in the future. Another thing I did was talk to myself. It sounds funny, but it works. When I was cooking, I would say, "I'm cutting the vegetables. Now I'm adding salt." When I was walking, I would describe what I saw. "There's a red car. The flowers are beautiful." This helped me think in English and get used to forming sentences. Even though nobody was listening, I was practicing. I also started to look for small challenges. For example, at the library, I would ask, "Can you recommend a good book for beginners?" At the bus stop, I would ask, "Which bus goes to the park?" These questions were simple, but they helped me practice starting conversations. Listening was another big part of my learning. I paid attention to how people spoke around me. On the subway, I listened to announcements like, "The next stop is Times Square." At restaurants, I listened to how others ordered their food. I even listened to children playing in the park because their language was simple and easy to understand. Listening helped me learn new words and phrases naturally. One day, I decided to challenge myself by talking to a stranger. I was in a park, sitting on a bench, when I saw a woman reading a book. I smiled and said, "What are you reading?" She looked up and smiled back. "It's a mystery novel," she said. We talked for a few minutes about books and favorite authors. It was a short conversation, but it felt like a big achievement. It reminded me that most people are happy to talk, especially when you show interest in what they are doing. I also learned to use technology to practice. For example, I set my phone's language to English. This forced me to read words like settings, notifications, and update in English. It was challenging at first, but over time, I got used to it. I also started watching short videos and listening to podcasts in English. These helped me hear how words are pronounced and used in everyday life. The key to improving through everyday encounters is consistency. I made it a habit to practice speaking every day, even if it was just a few sentences. Some days were harder than others. Sometimes I made mistakes or I couldn't think of the right word. But every attempt was a step forward. So, the next time you go out, look for chances to use English. Talk to the cashier, ask a question at the bus stop, or say hello to a neighbor. These moments may seem small, but they are powerful. They help you practice, build your confidence, and make English a part of your daily life. Everyday encounters are not just practice, they are progress. With each conversation, you are learning, growing, and becoming more confident. So go ahead, speak up, and make the most of every opportunity. You'll be amazed at how much you can improve just by using the English around you. Chapter 4: Setting Goals and Staying Motivated. When I started learning English, I often felt lost. I didn't know where to begin or how to measure my progress. That's when I realized the importance of setting goals. Goals gave me a clear direction and kept me motivated, even when learning felt hard. In this chapter, I want to share how setting goals changed my journey and how it can help you too. At first, my goal was very broad. I want to speak English fluently. It sounded good, but it wasn't specific. I didn't know how to get there. Then, a friend gave me some advice. Break your big goal into smaller, clear steps. That's when I started setting smaller goals. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be fluent," I said, "This week I will learn 10 new words," or "Today I will practice introducing myself." These smaller goals felt achievable, and every time I reached one, I felt proud and motivated to keep going. One of the first specific goals I set was to introduce myself in English without hesitation. I practiced saying, "Hi, my name is Ariel. I am from Spain. I enjoy cooking and traveling." At first, I practiced in front of a mirror. Then, I tried it with friends at my language club. Finally, I used it when meeting new people. Each time, I felt a little more confident. Reaching this small goal showed me that I could improve with effort. Another goal I set was to hold a short conversation. For example, I decided to talk to my neighbor about the weather. I said, "Good morning. It's sunny today. Do you like warm weather?" The conversation was brief, but it was a big step for me. Afterward, I wrote it down in my notebook and thought about what went well and what I could improve. Having a clear purpose also helped me stay motivated. I thought about why I wanted to learn English. For me, it was about connecting with people from different countries and having more opportunities in life. I imagined myself traveling to new places, talking to locals, and feeling confident. Whenever I felt tired or discouraged, I reminded myself of these dreams. They gave me the energy to keep going. Another thing that helped was creating fun and creative goals. For example, I set a goal to watch a short movie in English and understand at least half of it. I chose a simple movie with subtitles and wrote down new words I heard. Watching movies became both fun and educational, and it didn't feel like hard work. Sometimes, I struggled to stay motivated. There were days when I felt like I wasn't improving or that speaking English was too hard. On those days, I reminded myself to celebrate small wins. For example, if I learned one new word or understood one sentence better than before, I told myself, "You're making progress." These small victories kept me going. I also made a habit of rewarding myself. If I reached a weekly goal, like learning 20 new words or practicing speaking for 30 minutes, I treated myself to something I enjoyed. Sometimes it was a piece of cake, other times a relaxing walk in the park. These rewards made the learning process feel more enjoyable. Sharing my goals with others also helped. I told my friends at the language club about my goals, and they shared theirs with me. We encouraged each other and celebrated each other's progress. For example, one friend wanted to practice ordering food in English, so we went to a cafe together. She practiced ordering, and I practiced asking questions about the menu. It was fun and helpful for both of us. One day, I decided to set a big goal, to give a short speech in English at my language club. It was scary, but I worked on it step by step. First, I wrote the speech in simple English. Then, I practiced it every day, focusing on pronunciation and confidence. When the day came, I was nervous, but I did it. Everyone clapped and encouraged me. That moment was a turning point. It showed me that I could achieve anything if I worked hard and stayed focused. Goals are powerful because they give you something to aim for. They help you track your progress and keep you motivated. Whether your goal is to introduce yourself, hold a conversation, or speak in front of a group, every goal you set brings you closer to fluency. As you set your goals, remember to make them clear and achievable. Start small, celebrate your wins, and don't be afraid to dream big. Stay focused on your purpose and enjoy the journey. With each goal you reach, you'll feel stronger, more confident, and more excited about learning English. Chapter 5. Practical Methods for Improvement. When I started learning English, I often asked myself, how can I improve faster? I wanted practical methods that I could use every day, even outside of class. Over time, I discovered several techniques that helped me improve not just my speaking, but also my listening, vocabulary, and confidence. In this chapter, I will share these methods with you. The first method I found very useful was shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say, almost like you are their shadow. At first, I chose videos with slow and clear speech, like English podcasts for beginners or simple YouTube tutorials. I played a sentence, paused, and repeated it, trying to copy the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and tone. At first, it was challenging. I stumbled over words and couldn't keep up. But the more I practiced, the easier it became. Shadowing taught me how English sentences flow and how words connect. It also helped me notice small details, like how certain sounds are pronounced. Over time, I started sounding more natural when I spoke. I didn't worry about making mistakes during shadowing because it was just practice and nobody was listening. That gave me the freedom to try without fear. The second method I used was recording myself. This felt strange at first. I didn't like the sound of my voice, and I noticed mistakes I didn't realize I was making. But recording was one of the best ways to track my progress. I started with simple sentences, like introducing myself. Hi, my name is Ariel. I am learning English. I played the recording and compared it to native speakers. This helped me hear where I needed to improve. Every week I recorded myself again, talking about a different topic, like what I did that day, or my favorite movie. Listening to these recordings showed me how much better I was getting over time. It also gave me confidence because I could hear my own progress. Another method that worked well was using language apps. There are many apps that make learning fun and interactive. One app helped me practice vocabulary through games. It gave me points for matching words with their meanings or using them in sentences. Another app had conversation simulations where I could practice ordering food, asking for directions, or making small talk. These apps were great because they allowed me to practice anywhere, on the bus, during lunch breaks, or before bed. One of my favorite techniques was talking to myself. It sounds funny, but it works. When I was cooking, I described what I was doing. I'm chopping onions. Now I'm boiling water. When I was walking, I talked about what I saw. The park is beautiful. There are so many trees. This helped me think in English and form sentences naturally. Over time, it felt less like an exercise and more like a habit. Another method was building a vocabulary notebook. Whenever I heard a word I didn't know, I wrote it down. For example, one day someone said, "It's a bit chilly today." I didn't know what chilly meant, so I asked, and they explained it meant cold. I wrote it in my notebook and used it the next time the weather was cold. This helped me remember new words and how to use them in context. I also practiced common phrases and sentences. These were phrases I knew I would use often, like, "Can you help me?" or "I'd like a coffee, please." I practiced them until they felt automatic. Having these phrases ready made me more confident in real conversations because I didn't have to think too hard about what to say. Finally, I made a habit of asking for feedback. When I spoke to friends or teachers, I asked, "Can you tell me if I made a mistake?" Most people were happy to help. They would gently correct me or suggest a better way to say something. This helped me improve quickly because I learned from real interactions. One of the most important lessons I learned was that consistency matters more than perfection. I didn't have to practice for hours every day. Even 15 minutes of shadowing or using an app made a difference if I did it regularly. The key was to stay consistent and keep trying, even on days when it felt hard. These methods, shadowing, recording, using apps, talking to myself, and asking for feedback, helped me improve step by step. They made learning English practical and fun. Each technique taught me something new and brought me closer to fluency. If you're looking for ways to improve, try these methods. Start with one or two that feel comfortable, and then add more as you go. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about practicing, learning, and enjoying the process. With these tools, you'll see progress and feel more confident in your English every day. Chapter 6: Celebrating Progress and Looking Ahead. As I near the end of my journey to improve my English, I've realized one very important thing. Progress deserves to be celebrated. No matter how small the step, every bit of effort matters. At the beginning, I was so focused on fluency that I forgot to enjoy the journey. But now, I understand that every little success is worth acknowledging. I remember the first time I managed to have a short conversation in English without feeling nervous. It was with a stranger at a bus stop. I asked, "Which bus goes to Central Park?" The person answered, and we talked for a minute about the weather. When the bus arrived, I felt a mix of relief and pride. I had spoken English, and it felt natural. That small conversation stayed with me as a reminder of how far I'd come. As I improved, I made it a habit to reflect on my progress. At the end of each week, I asked myself, what did I learn this week? Sometimes it was a new word, like impressive. Other times, it was a technique, like using shadowing to improve pronunciation. Writing down these reflections helped me see my growth. It also kept me motivated to keep going. Celebrating progress doesn't mean waiting for big milestones. It can be as simple as recognizing the little victories, like ordering food at a cafe or understanding a full sentence in a movie without subtitles. These moments may seem small, but they are proof that you are moving forward. Each step builds confidence and reminds you that fluency is within reach. One way I celebrated my progress was by rewarding myself. When I reached a goal, like learning 50 new words or completing a week of consistent practice, I treated myself to something special. Sometimes it was a favorite snack, other times a walk in the park or watching a movie in English. These rewards made the journey more enjoyable and gave me something to look forward to. I also started sharing my progress with friends and family. I told them about my successes and even my funny mistakes. Sharing made me feel supported and encouraged. One of my friends once said, "Ariel, you've come so far. A few months ago, you couldn't even say a full sentence, and now you're having conversations." Hearing this made me feel proud and inspired me to keep going. Another important part of the journey is looking ahead. I realized that learning English doesn't stop once you feel comfortable. There's always more to explore. New words, new expressions, and new ways to communicate. Setting new goals keeps the journey exciting. For example, after mastering everyday conversations, I decided to improve my storytelling. I practiced telling short stories about my day, first to myself and then to friends. Thinking about the future also helped me stay motivated. I imagined myself traveling to different countries, making new friends, and feeling confident in any situation. This vision of my future self gave me the energy to push through challenges. It reminded me that every bit of effort today brings me closer to that future. As I look back, I see that learning English has been about more than just the language. It's been about building confidence, forming connections, and discovering new parts of myself. It has taught me patience, perseverance, and the value of trying, even when it feels hard. To anyone learning English, I want to say this: celebrate your progress. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, and every mistake you make is a step forward. Don't wait for perfection to feel proud. You're already doing something amazing by learning a new language. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. There's always more to learn, more to practice, and more to achieve. Keep setting goals, keep trying, and keep believing in yourself. Fluency isn't just about knowing the words. It's about having the courage to use them. With every step, you're getting closer to that future you dream of. Keep going. You've got this. Bye for now.
Like, share, and subscribe to our channel.